Hey guys, Nick here, and today we'll be getting into part 16 of What If the Governor Met Negan the Remake, where the Governor's story has officially come to an end, and we see the aftermath of Gareth and Dawn's people helping Rick and either offering to join him or him join them. Either way, it would be a major benefit for all those considered. Now, we will see Rick's decision and parts of the majority of the rest of the story, that's a little bit of a tongue twister, play out right now. Rick takes some time to think on this, but really, he can't really make a decision right now. Think about it. The man lost an arm, almost got killed, his nemesis came back, and the guy who didn't seem like a problem, Negan, who was halfway good, died. Gareth returns with these new people. It's a lot to take in, even if Gareth wasn't as bad a guy as in the original story. Rick takes a moment. He sits down. He tries to think, but he can't. He tells Gareth and Dawn that if he is to come to any decision, he needs to be... He needs to relax. He's been through way too much as of recent. He needs to, sit down, maybe see a doctor at Alexandria or something, and then take some time to think. He will allow them to stay with their community, but he can't make a decision on them joining, he can't really think properly right now. He just needs to, put his mind asunder after everything that's happened. He then takes Lucille, not understanding why Negan had it, since Negan wasn't really the big factor of the story here. The governor was the prime, factor. He then goes on to say that Dawn and Gareth are more than accepted now, especially thanks to their help. But as for him joining them, before he's to become any decision about that, or think on it any further, he just wants to get back to Alexandria and get himself some well-deserved rest and get himself patched up. But then he hears a voice behind him, an unfamiliar voice, telling him, "We have a doctor and can get you closer and faster to recovery." He turns around and sees a man with a hat, a trimmed beard, and with a jacket. He introduces himself as Jesus. Now, because of everything that has just transpired, Rick doesn't take this request lightly. He aims his gun with his one good arm and aims it straight at Jesus. Pretty much just like their first encounter. Because remember, that didn't happen yet. So, happens here. Rick demands to know who he is, where he came from, and if he's one of the men that the governor was hiding, or that Simon and those people had. Jesus said that he in no way was related to anything or anyone that was against these people. As a matter of fact, he saw Rick Michonne leave along with several others to the sanctuary. He explains the hilltop's travails with the sanctuary, and seeing as though they're all defeated pretty much, albeit from, outposts, since they now know of how many numbers the saviors actually have, he feels that it's best to, go along. And then whenever everything happened, he felt now was the good time to introduce himself. Rick takes all this in, thinks for a second, and is just like, you know what? Just take me to your hilltop. I don't care about your leader. I don't care about anything else. Just get me somewhere where I can get patched up and rest. Because Rick, you can't imagine everything that would be going on in his head right now. It would just be way too much for a man to bear. And Rick Grimes has already gone so much as a character. This would be just adding more on that does not need to be added on. So soon enough, all of the group that is alive goes to Hilltop to get Rick especially patched up. They meet Gregory, and Jesus mainly informs him of the fact that outside of Satellite Outpost, which there really isn't any left, there's 2, 3 left, so really nothing to worry about. Outside of 2, 3 outposts, Negan's forces, as well as the governor, who was a major hand in the recent years of the Sanctuary are now all defeated and say that they have mainly come here to bring Rick here to heal and to just check up on the rest of the group and talk like, peace, like trade, stuff like that. And I feel that Jesus and the way that the Saviors were dealt with like this would make Gregory not so much a jerk here. Trust me. He would still be a jerk. But considering the fact that the Saviors are pretty much done for, I don't think that Gregory would be as, forceful about making the group leave or kicking them to the curb, as you will, as he was in canon. And that's only because, the Saviors on the road, the outposts, and then more and more Saviors kept coming. It really just depended on the circumstances. And this story has dramatically changed that. And I think I'm kind of preaching to the choir on that one. Soon enough, after everything's said and done, everyone's introduced and all that, Rick is taken to Dr. Carson, which I think the other Dr. Carson that was already there would be dead. So this Dr. Carson's still alive. So Rick soon enough is put into Dr. Carson's room and healed up so far to the best of which they can work with. Soon enough, they begin to work with Rick more. Well, he begins to work with Rick more and anyone who might be, medical related at Hilltop. And Rick, he just can't help but smile at this. One, because it's kind of clear that he might be losing his mind at this point. And number two, it kind of just brings him back to the hospital from whenever he was there. It's like a repeat. And Rick, he is definitely happy to be hopefully putting this all behind him and glad that everyone survived from the governor and everything, except his arm. That wasn't too fun. Soon enough, during recovery and getting himself up and moving more during recovery, we see a Rick Grimes akin to the comics, obviously because of the hand, but more so because of the one hand and the Lucille factor, because remember, he took Lucille, not to, take it away from Negan. Negan wasn't a bad guy here, really. It was the governor. He just took the weapon because he felt like he deserved it from everything he just went through. And Rick, at that point, was just losing his marbles. He didn't care what he took or what he did. Heck, he could have killed Jesus for all he cared. But anyways, let's get on to what happens with the last few satellite outposts and the remainder of the Saviors. With no leaders or commanders to speak of, really, the Saviors are in complete, disarray. There's no chance that they can amount any kind of threat now. And they weren't the threat, really. The governor and the Croat were the main problem. But Dawn and Gareth's group, losing barely any of their ranks, take care of the last few satellite outposts to make sure that the Saviors don't mount some kind of threat in the future. As for the Junkyard and the Kingdom, how are we going to figure out about those? Well, I feel that from Jesus saying that the Hilltop had problems with the Saviors originally, this would amount to the last few satellite outposts being a big deal to take care of. So the Junkyard and the Kingdom, even though the Junkyard didn't really have too big a deal with the Saviors at first, I feel that both communities would have been found out by the Saviors or just from Jesus, really. Now, Michonne and Daryl would take people to go to the Kingdom and the Junkyard to let Rick heal and to just, give him something to do. Now we get into season 7 because, we were still in season 6 territory. Now we're going to talk survivors. Who has all lived? Because it's about time we talk about that. Gareth and pretty much all his people, including his brother and mother, are still alive, as well as Dawn and all her officers mainly. Possibly just 1 or 2 lost at max. Beth is still alive, of course, wielding the crossbow for the last few parts. Carl is alive, as well as keeping his eye, for now. Abraham and Glenn are alive, and trust me, we all wanted that, and I've made that happen many of times. Sasha is still alive, so Sasha and Abe are going to be together still. Dr. Carson is alive, which means that the Hilltop has more medical help. Eric is still alive, meaning Aaron's character development is better. Spencer's still alive, but honestly, who really wants him alive, really? It's just how the stories went that's kept him living. Denise and Olivia are still alive. Jesse and Sam, haven't touched base on them in a good minute. Mika is still alive, meaning Carol has better character development. Well, not better, so to speak. She's just softer. Benjamin and Henry are still alive. Well, Henry, obviously. I'm just saying Benjamin's there with Henry. Richard, Shiva, as well as many residents of the kingdom would not perish because of the saviors being a big deal in that aspect. They took out all the kingdom's warriors. Jadis and her people would still be alive. Jadis is still alive, but her people mainly. So that means that the junkyard and everything that they had going during the whole savior thing, that's going to stick. Now that we are done with survivors, we're going to talk about what happens after. Eugene, over the course of this time, would craft bullets for all of the communities, and it would definitely be good because there wouldn't be any war between the saviors. So this would result in a lot more ammunition. I'm talking absolute just bang ammunition, plus the ammunition that they would take from the sanctuary if they were to at all. Father Gabriel would keep his vision because he would never have that encounter with Negan with the walkers, which means that we wouldn't have that like one-eyed Gabe. So which isn't a total loss. It's also a gain. I mean, it depends on how you look at it, really. Heath, I'm going to throw the bone to going alone to Oceanside like I've done before, because for one thing, Tara would be dead, and number two, can't really think of anyone else that would go with Heath besides Tara. He would return to Oceanside after going there first and inform Natanya that the saviors are dealt with after hearing of their travails. And though Natanya would not really want to believe this, I feel that hearing that the saviors were taken care of would give her and her people a much-needed sigh of relief. They would finally be able to rest as a community, not to be threatened. Morgan's character development, obviously, would also be very dramatically changed because of Benjamin still being alive. And I really find it stupid that he changed in general because of Henry being around, but that's just the way that they went with it, because I guess Benjamin just reminded him more of Dwayne. Anyways, getting sidetracked. We get into season 8 territory, and at this point, Eugene has crafted absolutely god amounts of ammo from how much our group has saved from no real threat of the saviors and the ammunition and guns they'd be trading with and taking. This results in, oh my god, a absolute ball-ton deep load of ammo. There would just be so much it would not even be funny. Speaking of group and everything else, Rick has finally, at this point, recovered to the point where he's willing to talk to Dawn and Gareth about making a decision as to their question about possibly joining their side. But Rick finally has an answer. He doesn't want to leave his family, and he doesn't feel like going off on their own. Leaving the communities that they've worked together to build behind is a smart move. But they are more than welcome to start here, and Rick will lead them all, Dawn's group especially, into a police task force which can actually make the communities better, civilized. Bring society back like Deanna wanted. And then he explains who Deanna was and what she wanted for the communities. Dawn agrees with this, as well as Gareth and many others. And this actually fits to what Dawn had thought about too. Bringing the world back to how it was. Even when she was back at the hospital doing her own thing. That's what she wanted. Bringing the world back together in her own sick little way before she changed. Soon enough, we see Rick leading all of the police force of Dawn, as well as several of the warriors of all the other communities that are police fit, and some of Gareth's people that would be around that kind of role too. So we got a huge police force that's armed up here. Then we get into season 9. But how will season 9 go? How will the rest of the series go? especially with the fact that Rick, at this point, is like his comic counterparts, but a lot different. Does this mean that the threat of the Whisperers with all of this happening will even be noticeable? Will anything major happen for the rest of the series now that the governor has officially been taken out of the picture, meaning that, he was kind of the whole deal of the series? Or do you think that there are more scary surprises in store for our people, including Rick himself, looking more and more closer to possibly losing his life in this story? And that's where we leave things for the moment. Whether or not Rick would lose his life at this point in the story, really, it would depend because of, the whole one-arm thing. And I had even thought about that, especially after looking into the comics. But considering that he has lost his arm way later in the story, yeah, don't expect me to be giving Rick an L here anytime soon or at all. Because, yeah, he almost did take the L in the last two parts, but I really love Rick Grimes too much not to kill him except in certain scenarios. But I hope you guys enjoyed this part nonetheless and are gearing up for the last few parts of the series because we're closing up here pretty soon. But anyways, like and subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys in the next video.